The web is incredibly exciting because it is the fulfillment of a lot of our dreams, that the computer would ultimately not be primarily a device for computation, but metamorphosize into a device for communication.
207,780,000. That is the number of people who use the internet within the United States on a daily basis. Over the last 46 years, the world of technology has taken off like a storm. Although many of these advances have been in the last decade, the history of the internet dates back to 1969.
It has become the main source of news, communications, and sharing. But where did it begin?
The building blocks to what we know as the internet today began in 1969. This was the birth to the first era, the Advanced Projects Research Agency Network. However, most people knew it as the ARPANET. But first, it is important to understand where the need for a new form of communication began.
On October 24, 1957, the Soviet Union launched the world's first man-made satellite.
At this time, the Cold War was underway, and the Americans were in a sense of terror, because this device could destroy their main source of communication, telephone lines.
The government knew that, should the lines be destroyed, the United States would be in great trouble. This is when the push began, encouraging search for a new form of communication.
Corporations began taking grants from the government and invested many of their resources in these fields as well.
In 1965, the idea of packet switching was developed. This was a form of technology which, theoretically, could be sent from one computer to another.
On October 29, 1969, it was put to the test. The team of researchers began referring to this form of communication as node-to-node. At this time, a node was the size of a small house, one of which was in UCLA and the other in Stanford.
The first message was sent. Although it was not entirely successful, seeing as it was intended to say log in and only include the first two letters, researchers became hopeful. In 1970, American computer scientists Vincent Cerf and Robert Kahn began to develop a way to get computers to communicate.
Separately, Kahn and Cerf have had many great projects through the years, but it is the Transmission Control Protocol, TCP, that is one of their greatest accomplishments. In general, it is responsible for the communication established between devices as well as the processing. In the beginning, it was thought that the TCP would replace the ARPANET networking.
Once Cerf joined the project, they began to research radio networking and developing TCP, which is networking that with IP is still used in the internet today.
The year 1981 marked the beginning of the second era, the internet era. In this decade, the internet was born and began to grow. In 1979, the initiative to expand the internet began at a meeting in the University of Wisconsin. It was here that Lawrence Landweber conducted a special meeting to discuss the internet and how it could be used publicly.
Previously, the ARPANET was only accessible at a dozen university sites, and the DARPA was unable to include the rest of the community.
The year after, the Computer Science Network was born. This aimed to reach a larger environment. In 1989 was when the real advancement was made. A British scientist at CERN by the name of Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web. This developed to answer the demand for automatic information sharing between scientists in universities and institutes around the world.
The first website was dedicated to explaining what the World Wide Web was, how to use it, and how to create a server.
Mark Anderson was a computer science student at the University of Illinois at the time. This allowed him to become familiar with the World Wide Web as it launched off.
Between 1992 and 1993, Anderson and a group of students and researchers at the college began with building a browser. This program became known as the Mosaic, later the Netscape.
This opened a whole new approach to the internet. Mosaic was user-friendly and allowed photos and information to be viewed on the same page. It also introduced scroll bars and clickable links for more easy use.
Following, Congress decided that the web could be used for commercial purposes. Businesses rushed to put up websites and popularize the World Wide Web. Commercials aired demonstrating simple installation and use.
And that led to the beginning of the last era, the Web 2.0 era, which lasted from 2001 to present day. This era introduced search engines and wireless internet.
Everything the world once knew about the use of the internet changed with the introduction of Wikipedia. Jimmy Wales and Larry Sanger saw the convenience of wiki pages and sought to build the world's first encyclopedia. This marked the beginning of Nupedia. Nupedia was a site based off of peer reviews. It was formed for experts to post, PhDs recommended, on articles which would become of use to the public and other researchers. Unfortunately, the plan failed. By 2003, only 24 articles had been posted on Nupedia.
However, Wales saw the failure as a new beginning. Wikipedia was previously formed as a discussion room for Nupedia. It allowed anyone to create, edit, or discuss on the pages.
Wikipedia was followed by the invention of the iPod and the expansion of the iTunes Store, Google pages up to 8 million, and the launch of YouTube.
2003 began a new form of communicating once again with the introduction of wireless internet.
It was also a large part of the impact of the launch of the iPhone by Apple on June 29, 2007. This allowed access to the web of a mobile device for the first time. It also allowed the sending and receiving of emails and the downloading of games, a revolution that affects many of us each and every day.
Today, the 4 major points of communication are in Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco. Internet communication can now be sent from cellular towers, satellites, and many other forms of communication.
Funding and control is democratic, but would not be what it is today without the advancements it has made over the last 46 years. From the first desires to seek communication, from the Cold War to the form of the mosaic to Wikipedia. That is all part of the history of the internet and the web we have become a part of today.